Hello everyone, thank you very much for joining me. If you want to show support for the work I'm doing here, I've included a bunch of links in the description with different ways to do that, and I appreciate you guys who continue to show that support. So, as an old soul, I make a lot of mistakes. As a light worker, I mess up a lot. But I'm okay with that because over time I've accepted and I've realized that my most prominent learning opportunities come from those mistakes. And I made a mistake recently that was a harm to my vibration, and being an Akashic Records practitioner, I can enter that space and inquire about what my experience was. So I was lucky enough to have a teacher student back and forth with Kryon, and I want to talk about that back and forth because there was some really profound revelations there, and something I would have never crossed paths with if not for screwing up. So if you feel like you're messing everything up and doing everything wrong, Kryon will be the first one to tell you that there's no failure, there's only learning. So don't be too hard on yourself. So after a long day of working in the Akashic Records with different clients in session, I'm engaging a lot more in past life remote viewing, and that's actually very draining. So if you see me during session or after session, I'm usually drenched in sweat, and that's because I'm tapping into a high frequency and I'm having to hold that frequency for an hour. And the more vivid the visualization is and the more of my sensory system that it takes to observe what I'm seeing, the more exhausted I get. It's a good problem to have though. So after one of those days, I went to bed and I put on this track on YouTube that runs for 8 hours, and it basically fluctuates through a bunch of different frequencies in a very short period of time, and it does that for the entire 8 hours. So the next day I woke up, and normally I would feel really good after doing that, so that's why I did it. But that day I woke up and I was feeling completely drained. I was feeling really depressed and exhausted. I felt like, even though I was sleeping, I did not recharge my batteries at all. So I felt so bad, I had to go into the Akashic Records because, being a practitioner, I'm used to studying myself and then inquiring as early as I can while that experience is still fresh on my mind. So when I go into the Akash, I am no longer asking or requesting certain aspects of me or calling or invoking some energy or some archangel. I'm 100% leaving it up to my higher self to decide who I engage with and who I interact with. And this time I was lucky enough to have Kryon come forward, which is an energy I love to be in the presence of, because every time it happens, it just takes me back to 10, 11 years ago when I started waking up and, was outside all night, every night, listening to Kryon channelings, and it just takes me back there and I like it. So I asked Kryon to explain why I was feeling the way I was and why that thing that I had been listening to that before would charge my batteries was now depleting me. So what Kryon said was very simple. You went through that process simply because you were seeking to soothe the old mind. So I asked, that makes sense. All of those frequencies all over the place for 8 hours, obviously that's going to overload me, and it's not really necessary for me to do. Kryon did say that maybe 10 minutes absorbing those frequencies would have been enough for me to reboot myself. So you should take a lesson from this and study the way you feel after you're going through your rituals and your routines that we've been engaged in for a very long time. I think you will find that if you are feeling like whatever you're doing is having the opposite effect, then it's a redundant practice to go through that, and it's actually draining your batteries instead of charging you. Keep in mind, we are very, very energetically sensitive already. And as this ascension process has continued, and as the planetary ascension really starts to get its footing, your sensitivity is just going up, 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 up. And the more we try to soothe the old version of us, the less responsive the new version of us is going to be. So it's a good time to take a spring inventory of what you're doing, what your behaviors are, what rituals are you still engaging in that are part of an old energy, which we know old energy is now defined as yesterday. Things are changing that fast. So pay attention to how you feel. If you feel like you're doing your diligence in caring for yourself and maintaining your energetic integrity, but you still feel like you're spiraling, you may be overloading yourself with energy. In that situation, you need to return to your connection to the earth. You need to ask the earth to assist you with dispersing and regulating everything that you don't need and everything that you do need. There are a lot of parties involved in this experience that are resources for us who we have a personal relationship with, who love us and have been given the directive by the Creator to support us in whatever our endeavor is here or whatever we're looking to manifest and seek. Another piece of advice that was given in the Akashic from Kryon, which at first was a little funny to me because I'm an Akashic Records practitioner. Working and editing, reprogramming the subconscious mind is what I do for a living. But that doesn't mean that there's not opportunity to learn and that there's not another layer to that work that, I haven't explored yet. So Kryon said to me, you need to communicate with your subconscious mind more casually. And a few days ago, I had to do something. I had an obligation that I was really not looking forward to, which is the case with old souls. It's hard for us to anticipate doing something in the future when we're so heavily invested in the now moment. Something feels wrong about that. So that often leads us to anticipate what's going to happen from a lens of anxiety or frustration that we might have to leave our comfort zone for some reason and participate and play the role or the character that we're playing here. But really, for me, it wasn't about the thing that I had to do. I'm okay with fulfilling my obligations, and I'm always going to do the things that I need to do to get by in this place and support my family. So it wasn't necessarily about this thing that I had to do that I didn't want to. It was about the build up to it and the anticipation of it and the feedback my subconscious mind was giving me because of it. So Kryon said to me, you had this task that you were required to do that was causing you a lot of anxiety and you didn't really understand why. In that moment, the subconscious mind was feeding you that anxiety as it functioned on an outdated script. In that moment, the second you felt the anxiety, you could have personally and consciously addressed the subconscious mind and politely and lovingly asked it to change the script. And my thought was, it is really that easy, and I can see why. And that was a big revelation for me, because we often don't understand how little the conscious mind contributes to our thoughts and our behaviors, and how much of that is coming from the subconscious mind. But you can understand, or once you understand that the subconscious mind is just kind of going through the motion, playing the role that it's been given to play, it is also required to pause and listen and respond when consciousness says, hey, here's something you need to pay attention. In that moment, I could have personally addressed the subconscious mind. Please change the feedback that I am receiving about the obligation that I have later. And this is actually something that I tried today. So I did what I was instructed to do, exactly the way that I was instructed to do it. I just simply paused in that moment, asked the subconscious mind to change the information that I was being given. And it was honestly like that bubble in the heart popped and you were okay taking care of your business, and I didn't have to really be kicking and screaming all the way there. As an old soul, you should understand that part of your reason for being here is to make the unconscious conscious again. And we do that by studying ourselves and observing ourselves, the way we think, the way we behave, the habits we have, the routines and patterns we have. All of those are subconscious behaviors that you can study, but you can only study them in the right way if you're doing it without judgment, because it really does throw a wrench in the gears of everything that you're trying to do in your personal growth and the expansion and study of yourself. So I asked Kryon again, what happens when we study the feedback given by the unconscious mind or the subconscious mind without judgment? And Kryon said this: it gives us the opportunity to decide how our experience feels. So you may have heard a lot from Spirit, you don't have the dream job that you want right now, but can you be okay doing the one you have, knowing that there are better things for you? Maybe you're not in the relationship you want to be in now, but are you kicking and screaming all the way through it, or are you understanding the forces at work and how your vibrational state keeps you in alignment with correcting that issue or that situation? Can you be in the middle of the storm in a meditative position, just chilling, hanging out, having the best time ever, just being here?